The luxury SUV had gone silent in the middle of a deserted highway outside Amarillo, Texas, just as dark storm clouds rolled across the sky. Every warning light flashed red, every expensive piece of technology failed, and the woman who owned one of the largest engineering companies in America suddenly found herself stranded with no signal and no answers. Then an old man wearing faded work boots quietly stepped onto the roadside, looked at the silent engine, and instead of reaching for a toolbox, he knelt down and drew 3 simple circles on the pavement with a piece of white chalk. 7 minutes later, the impossible happened. If you believe kindness deserves another chance and that miracles sometimes arrive through ordinary people, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Victoria Harper had spent 20 years building Harper Dynamics into a billion-dollar company. Newspapers praised her intelligence, investors admired her confidence, and employees respected her relentless work ethic. Yet behind every success stood a lonely woman who rarely trusted anyone outside her corporate world. Her calendar was always full, but her heart had grown strangely empty. That afternoon she was driving alone across Texas after visiting a manufacturing facility, determined to prove she never needed anyone's help. When her expensive vehicle suddenly died without warning, frustration quickly turned into fear as heavy rain began to fall. Nearly every passing driver ignored her. Some glanced briefly before continuing down the highway. Minutes felt like hours until an elderly man named Samuel slowly approached from a nearby roadside workshop that looked forgotten by time. His denim jacket was worn, his gray hair was uncombed, and his hands carried decades of honest labor. Victoria assumed he was simply another mechanic with outdated knowledge who could never understand the advanced technology inside her luxury vehicle. Still, with no other choice, she allowed him to examine it. Samuel did something that made absolutely no sense. Instead of opening the hood immediately, he walked around the SUV 3 times before kneeling near the front tire. Using an old piece of white chalk, he carefully drew 3 circles on the wet pavement, closed his eyes for a moment, then quietly stood and finally lifted the hood. Victoria watched with disbelief, convinced she had just trusted her fortune to a man following meaningless rituals. What she never noticed was that Samuel had been observing far more than the engine. The circles marked tiny puddles forming beneath specific parts of the vehicle. They helped him trace where water had leaked after a damaged seal allowed moisture to reach an important electrical connection. During 40 years repairing farm equipment, trucks, and emergency vehicles across Texas, he had developed a unique habit of mapping invisible problems visually before touching a single bolt. The circles were not magic. They were simply his quiet language of experience. For 7 patient minutes, Samuel cleaned a hidden connector, dried the moisture with an old cloth, tightened a loose ground cable, and calmly reassembled everything. When Victoria turned the key again, the powerful engine roared back to life as if nothing had ever happened. She stared in stunned silence. Engineers from her own company had designed systems like this, yet she had never imagined that wisdom gathered through decades of practical work could solve what expensive computers could not even identify. As rain softened into a gentle drizzle, Victoria looked around Samuel's tiny workshop. Rust covered the roof, broken windows let cold air inside, and aging tools hung neatly on wooden walls. She discovered he had once trained dozens of young mechanics for free after school because many local families could not afford technical education. When factories closed, funding disappeared, and eventually everyone forgot the man who had quietly shaped generations of skilled workers without asking for recognition. That realization stayed with Victoria long after she drove away. Back at company headquarters in Chicago, she could not stop thinking about the old mechanic whose greatest gift had never been fixing engines. It had been believing that knowledge should be shared instead of hidden. Within weeks, Harper Dynamics announced a nationwide apprenticeship program for young people from struggling communities. The first training center was built beside Samuel's little workshop, and he was invited to become its honorary instructor. Hundreds of students soon learned that true expertise grows through patience, humility, and compassion rather than pride alone. Samuel never accepted special treatment or expensive gifts. He simply smiled every morning as young apprentices filled the classrooms with curiosity and hope. Victoria visited often, no longer as a powerful executive seeking admiration but as a grateful student learning that leadership begins by listening to people the world overlooks. The 3 circles that once seemed foolish became a permanent symbol inside every training center, reminding future engineers that every problem deserves careful observation before quick judgment. Before we reach the end of this story, please write in the comments, "Kindness always finds its way." Your words may encourage someone who desperately needs hope today. Years later, when people asked Victoria what the greatest investment of her career had been, they expected her to mention a billion-dollar acquisition or a revolutionary invention. Instead, she remembered a rainy highway, an old mechanic with worn boots, and 3 simple circles drawn on the ground. She realized that success is measured not by how many people work beneath you, but by how many lives rise because someone believed in them. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to the channel so together we can continue spreading stories of hope, compassion, and second chances. Sometimes the smallest act of respect can restart a life just as surely as it restarts an engine, and the greatest miracles often begin with someone choosing to see value where everyone else only sees an ordinary stranger.